So I'm going to talk about my great-grandfather as a man and as an artist, and then talk a little bit about what we've been doing with his artistic estate since he passed away. So this is where my great-grandfather was born. He grew up poor. His father was the first member of our family to be on the lowest ranks of the Austro-Hungarian bureaucracy. Before that, our family had been growing grapes in the hills around Iványice in Moravia, the town you see at the beginning of the first immersive film, for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And so Alphonse, he grew up, and the first thing he had as a toy was a pencil that his mother tied around his neck. And this is one of the earlier works we got in our collection. This is a crucifixion that he drew when he was 8 years old. And the Catholic Church was a big influence on him when he was growing up. He had a wonderful singing voice. And so he was sent away to Brno, the local big town, to sing in the cathedral choir and to get his education there. But unfortunately, he wasn't a very good student, and so they expelled him after a little while. And so his father wanted him. His father, as I said, was a local bureaucrat. He was the guy who took prisoners from the local jail to the local courthouse, and then took them back from the courthouse to the jail after their trial. And Alphonse was actually born in the apartment above the jail. And he wanted Alphonse to follow him into his role in the bureaucracy and to kind of encourage our family's ascent. And so he got Alphonse, after he was expelled from school, a job as a stenographer at the courthouse. But unfortunately, it didn't go very well, because rather than writing down what happened, Alphonse started drawing all of the people who are in the dock instead. And this actually, if you Cindy mentioned that we have a show on at the Phillips Collection in DC right now. So this actual drawing is down there in DC right now for its American debut. So if you have a chance, you can see how to lose a job as a stenographer. So Alphonse was fortunate enough to find a patron who sponsored him, and he went off to Paris to learn to become an artist. And it was there that he met up with great artists like Paul Gauguin on the left there, who was his roommate in Paris. And while they were living together, Gauguin and Mucha, they were both pretty poor, and so they couldn't afford models. So these are two photos of Paul Gauguin that Alphonse took in Paris as a model, and then you can see the two figures together in this drawing. And then Alphonse was just about getting by. He was illustrating books, he was illustrating magazines, and then just before Christmas in 1894, he had this moment of extraordinary luck that changed his life and changed the history of art forever. So Sarah Bernhardt, the most famous actress in the world, had a new play, Gismonda, and it wasn't performing. The box office wasn't working for her, and she thought it was because the poster wasn't any good. So she asked her printers to come up with a new one, but because it was just before Christmas, all of the artists to whom they would usually have turned were out of town. And so the only option that was available to the printer was this unknown Czech artist, Alphonse Mucha. And so he drew something that looked a lot like this and showed it to the printer, and the printer hated it. He thought it was awful, it was ugly, and it didn't look like anything he'd ever seen before. So he sent Mucha packing. But because he didn't have any other alternatives, he went on at the same time to send this drawing to Sarah Bernhardt. So as Alphonse told the story in his memoirs, he walked back home, trudging through the snow, thinking that he'd lost his one shot at success. And so imagine when he got back to his apartment, there was a note on the door saying, "Come to the Théâtre de la Renaissance immediately, orders of Madame Sarah." And so he was terrified. I mean, just like an Angelina Jolie or a Nicole Kidman, she was a diva, she had a temper. And so he walked very, very reluctantly over there, and he knocked shyly on the stage door. And instead of sending the staff from the theatre to open the door, the most famous woman in the world flung the door open herself, embraced him, and said, "Mr. Mucha, you have made me immortal." And immediately she signed him up to a 6-year contract to be her artistic director. So producing all of her stage sets, all of her costumes, all of her jewelry. And what she saw that the printers didn't see was that this was the moment that Art Nouveau, which became the world's first truly global art style, was born. And before Art Nouveau was called Art Nouveau, it was called Le Style Mucha, the Mucha style. And so this poster was a sensation. As soon as it went up, The more honest Parisians went out and they tried to bribe the bill stickers to let them take a copy home. And the less honest ones went out with razor blades or with scissors at night and cut down copies to take home and put on their walls. And in a moment, the whole of Paris was just infused with Mucha style. And so it wasn't just the Sarah Bernhardt who commissioned posters from him. It was also all sorts of people who were selling products. And this one, for example, is selling cigarette papers. And what Alphonse realized that most advertisers at that time didn't realize, and perhaps this is why he's considered a father of modern advertising, is that you're not selling a product, you're selling a dream. And so at this time, women didn't really smoke. It was a male activity. It was something that was kind of taboo for women. But what he's done here is he's created this woman who's glowing with her own internal strength. She's a woman who's beautiful from the inside out, not needing a male gaze to validate her beauty, and that she is choosing to have freedom and to do this activity that's traditionally associated with men. And that's why the products went on to become very successful. Moet et Chandon, for example, the champagne was really driven into their level of success by the posters Alphonse created for them, and which you can see in the immersive films. Alphonse also innovated with being able to create these decorative panels. He believed that his art was a universal benefit for humanity. His idea was that art belongs to everyone, not just for the salons of the elite. And he used the technology of the lithograph to make that work available to people. He thought that if people had pictures by him in their houses, seeing them would make them a little bit happier. And if we were a little bit happier, we'd all be a little bit kinder. And if you could do that through enough people, then it would help to make the world a better place. And so he had this kind of utopian attitude to his artwork that he started to promulgate through these panels. He also started having exhibitions and being able to show his work throughout the city. And he also went on to create other things like this incredible jewelry shop that you can now see in the Musée Carnavalet in Paris, that he created for Georges Fouquet on the Rue Royale, right by the Louvre. So this was in 1900 or so, and Alphonse was successful. He was friends with the most famous people in Paris. He was fairly affluent, and he felt deeply sad, and he didn't know why. And it was when he was commissioned by the Austro-Hungarian Empire to create a pavilion for the Universal Exhibition for the newly annexed province of Bosnia-Herzegovina, that he went on a study trip to go and meet with, and while he was on the study trip, he met with southern Slavic peoples in Bosnia-Herzegovina. And they, like the people he grew up around in Moravia, they were living in a country that they felt was theirs, but they were annexed by an imperial power, and their language was suppressed, and they were discriminated against. And Alphonse felt a lot of simpatico with these people, and it kind of inspired him for the turn in his career that led on to him wanting to create a Slav epic, a work that he hoped could come and be in Prague and would show people how the history of the Slavic peoples was a history towards the kind of universal world peace that he saw as something lying in our near future, a world where big countries can live next to small countries, where we can have self-determination, where we can look across the border and we can see the cultural differences, but find a way to engage in a peaceful and respectful dialogue. So in order to raise money for this big project, Alphonse came out to America. And when he first arrived in New York, he was greeted on the dock by a cartel like this that proclaimed him as the world's greatest decorative artist. And he started doing society portraits. And I think that one of the really interesting areas of research we're doing right now is trying to find those families in Cleveland or in Baltimore who've had this old painting knocking around above the fireplace for generations and haven't known that they've got an original Mucha. While he was in America, he befriended the industrialist Charles Crane of Crane Plumbing, and he was someone who was very interested in self-determination for different groups of Slavic peoples, and he helped to finance the Slav epic, as well as a Czech. We think of him very fondly, along with Woodrow Wilson, because they supported our first president, Jan Masaryk, when he was a professor at the University of Chicago, and kind of starting to sow the seeds of Czechoslovak independence. Charles Crane provided financing for Alphonse to create this masterpiece, which is 20 huge canvases, 6 by 8 meters large each, depicting the history of the Slavic peoples and that path towards the universal peace that he saw. So having secured funding from his American patron, Alphonse moved back to the Czech land. So this is a really interesting early color photograph of him in this castle where he painted the Slav epic. And that's him here with my great-grandmother and my great-aunt Jaroslava. So this is a little bit before my grandfather was born. While in Prague, Alphonse put his artistic talents in the service of the Czechoslovak independence movement and then in the service of the Czech nation, and created some of his key works like this Lord Mayor's Hall in the Municipal House in Prague. He also was quite clever about doing posters that raised money without upsetting the Austro-Hungarian overlords. So this was one that was just saying, oh, let's raise money for more pencils and things for schools. But what it really is raising money is for Czech-speaking teachers who will teach the children in Czech rather than German, and to kind of keep the independence movement going. Once independence was achieved at the tail end of World War I, Alphonse again put his talents right in the service of the nation. So he designed all of the first banknotes, all of the first postage stamps that you can see here, and all sorts of other things for the nation. And this, for example, is the window in the cathedral in the center of Prague that he created. Again, that's one of his kind of crowning achievements, and a very, very beautiful piece to celebrate his nation. But the biggest thing he created for the nation was the Slav epic. And you can kind of see here the scale of it and how big the individual canvases were. And it tells the story of the Slavs from the dark days of the start of history, where this is, this is modern day Ukraine now. So this is between the Dnipro and the Deva rivers, and you've got the kind of Slavic Adam and Eve hiding in the distance, hiding in the foreground, while in the distance there are ravaging hordes burning villages. So it tells the story from this point through to the apotheosis of the Slavs, when the World War I ended, and you can see all of the flags of the Allies, and it's this great moment where the Slavic peoples will be able to have self-determination and fulfillment, and everything's going to be great. And Alphonse gave this to the Czech nation in 1928, and at that point he felt like everything had worked out. He was successful, he was famous, he'd helped achieve self-determination for his people, and everything was great until something was brewing just across the border. And in 1939, Hitler marched across the border, annexed Czechoslovakia, and Alphonse was one of the first 10 people to be taken in for interrogation by the Gestapo. He survived the 10 days that he was interrogated, but he contracted pneumonia while he was there, and he died soon afterwards. The Nazis took him in for three main reasons. My great-grandmother, his wife, was Jewish, so that didn't help. He was the de facto national artist, and the vision you saw as depicted in the Slav epic is quite different from how Hitler saw the Czech lands. And then he was the head of the Czech Freemasons, and among the many things that the Nazis hated, Freemasons were one of them. So just shy of his 79th birthday, he died. My great-grandmother petitioned the Nazi authorities to let us bury him in the National Monument. And somewhat to our surprise, they said yes, but said that only the immediate family could be there for the funeral. And we think the reason that they did this is because my grandfather, Jiří, as a prominent young Czech Jew, had already fled for France and had enrolled in the Foreign Legion. And they wanted him to come back so they could grab him. So he did come back, but rather than obeying the Nazi interdiction, over 100,000 regular Czech people lined the streets of Prague to bid farewell to their national artists. And so my grandfather was able to slip out and back unnoticed. And so that was one of the last kind of cries for freedom of the Czech people before the dark days of the Nazi occupation. After World War II, we had a brief and glorious period of freedom before the communist coup of 1950 and the Iron Curtain coming down across Europe, and some very, very challenging times for our family. The communist authorities, the first communist minister of culture, wanted to destroy the Slav epic. So the only way we could protect it was literally by rolling it up, sticking it in containers, and hiding it under piles of coal in a castle in Moravia, where actually you can see it until today. This castle looked after it through those bleak days, and it's been restored recently and looks really magnificent there. His work was also locked away behind the Iron Curtain, a great majority of the work he did. And so it was really ignored by Western art historians for a long time. And the only works that were available were the posters that he created in Paris. And so this artist, who was greeted in New York by a cutout proclaiming him the greatest artist in the world, really slipped off the radar until 1989. And in 1989, the wall came down, and then soon after, my grandfather Yuji, he passed away, and my father John established the Mucha Foundation, which he and my mother got up and running. And what we do is we preserve and protect his work, but then also, in line with Alphonse's philosophy, we want to share it around the world. And so we have a Mucha Museum in Prague. I know that some of you have visited Prague and seen the Mucha Museum. I'd encourage you to come again. We literally last week, we just opened a stunning new one that I'll show you a couple of pictures of later, that uses all of the research of the last 30 years, is in the most beautiful Baroque palace in Prague, opposite the theatre where Mozart conducted the premiere of Don Giovanni, and really shows Mucha's achievement in a beautiful way. Since we started the foundation, we've acquired and conserved about 800 original artworks. We apologize to our museum friends for this, but we think we know how to take care of Mucha works better than museums do. We've grown up around them, we live them, we breathe them. They're very, very sensitive, and so when things come on the market, we like to try to get hold of them and preserve them for the future. And we have academic conferences around the world. So Tomoko Sato, our curator, who you can see here with my father, she's really the world's expert on Mucha and has really expanded the envelope of what his work can mean. And I think you see that in this exhibition here, which, as Cindy said, is, for us, we want people to see Mucha's work and be amazed and be wowed, but that's not enough for us. We want them also to learn. And it's that editorial line that we try to achieve. And we were so happy to work with our partners at the Grand Palais in Paris. And we're so happy with the presentation that Cindy's created here for it. We're lucky that we get to exhibit in some of the best museums in the world. This is the Musée du Luxembourg in Paris. Our exhibition there attracted 350,000 visitors, making it the second most successful exhibition in that museum's long and illustrious history. Chagall was number 1, Mucha was number 2, and Cézanne was number 3. So we're quite happy to keep that company. And because of Tomoko's exceptional curation, we're lucky that outlets around the world say some quite nice things about us. One of the other things that's really interesting is that while Mucha might have slipped off the radar of conventional art history in the West for 50 years, there's something in his work that spoke to communities of artists who might not have found a space in the artistic mainstream. So just as Mucha was discriminated against member of a minority in Austro-Hungary, there's something not just in his aesthetic, but the kind of call for freedom that lurks behind the line of his work, that speaks to communities that haven't really found traditional representation. So whether that's Japanese manga artists, Japanese female manga artists in the 1970s, who were breaking into a really chauvinistic and male-dominated industry. Back then, women's manga was pretty boring. It was a story about you can get married to a salaryman and have 2 children, and you can make some nice bento boxes, and here are some bento box designs. And the artists who took Mucha as their visual inspiration, who were female artists, they said, you know what, if you want to have an affair with a rock star, that's a valid life choice as well. And it really went to a flowering of how manga created more kind of rich emotional storylines. And then this here is a dear friend of ours who you can see in the interview section in the exhibition downstairs, Joe Quesada, who's a Cuban-American comic book artist. And he grew up as a comic book artist doing cool things like this. But then he kind of rose up the ranks at Marvel. And when he retired a couple of years ago, he was the chief creative officer of Marvel Entertainment. So he's the guy who was responsible for the whole creative direction of all those Marvel multiverse movies that I'm sure that your children and grandchildren enjoy so much. And when you watch those movies, you can see that the kind of call for freedom, the idea for being able to find resolution of ideas and being able to engage in dialogue, those are all there. And if you look at the posters, they echo the form of Mucha's posters. And we're really thrilled to see that. And you see this as well in this show Arcane, which was the most popular show on Netflix around the world a couple of years ago, where there's an upstairs, downstairs story. It's the upstairs is this kind of sanitized, very corporate world that everything's cold and very clean edges. And then downstairs, there's a world that yearns for freedom and finds its visual expression in Mucha's style. So it thrills us when artists find something in my great-grandfather's work that they use as a jumping off point and for an inspiration for themselves to express their ideas and their philosophy, which more often than not ties in with Alphonse's own utopian worldview. So as I mentioned, we've just opened this new museum in Prague. This is the building it's in, and this is like the main shopping street in Prague. So we're very, very lucky to be able to place it here. It's been designed by Eva Ježičná, who's a kind of national treasure of Czech architects, and the presentation is great. I mean, what I find amazing is that she's a minimalist architect, and Mucha's style is this Art Nouveau style, and we've put it in a Baroque palace. So somehow she's managed to find a way to unify all three of these designs. But the museum at the moment, it's great. Please do come and see it, and we're very, very proud of the presentation. But it's a stepping stone towards our larger ambition, which is to fulfill Alphonse's vision that the Slav epic could be displayed in a fitting hall for itself in Prague. And the palace that you saw here backs onto a huge brownfield site. It was all part of the palace back when the palace was created, but the communists made a real mess of it and filled it in with ugly buildings, destroyed the beautiful Baroque garden was there, turned the riding hall into a factory. And so we're working with the property developer who's developing the space to create something very, very special there. And we're working with the British architect Thomas Heatherwick, that some of you might be aware of from the work he did, for example, on the vessel in Hudson Yards in New York, or the new island that popped off the west coast of Manhattan a few years ago as Barry Diller's pet project, or indeed in the new building that Google are building for their headquarters in Mountain View. And he's an artist who was inspired by Mucha when he was a student. So it's been really thrilling for us to work with him, one of the 4 or 5 best or most expensive architects in the world, to create this new space for Alphonse's masterwork. So he's created this idea of having it as a cathedral, where you have these kind of central spokes that radiate out from these 2 centers, one for the Czech-facing works, one for the Slavic-facing works, and they radiate out in these spokes that lead to the canvases themselves. And what's so great about his design is that because he's been able to hide the structural elements in the architecture behind it, there's uninterrupted sightlines to all of the canvases. So this is what it's going to look like. And yeah, we're really excited about this. We're just starting to dig the holes now. We're really hoping that this part's going to open in 2028, which would be the 100th anniversary of Alphonse giving it to the city of Prague. But we're a little bit nervous that as we start digging, we're going to find a Roman village or something else, and the archaeologists will need to come and do their work, and it will slow things down. But yeah, we're really, really excited to be able to have that. It's going to be something very special. My father had a long-term vision when he started the foundation that we wanted to expand the notion. Well, the way my father put it, we want to dynamite the notion that Alphonse Mucha was just a poster artist. And I think we've done that. But then also, and we're hoping this is going to be the case with the new museum we've just created, what we want to do is to put Prague on the world's art map in a new way. When people come to our beautiful, beautiful city, they come for the history, they come for the incredible buildings, they come for the best beer in the world. I know that our Belgian friends might disagree with that. But as of now, they haven't come for the art. Our National Gallery has a really terrific Klimt, but if you want to see Klimt, you go to Vienna. We've got a really nice Picasso again in the National Gallery, but again, if you want to see Picasso, you go to Paris or you go to Barcelona or Malaga. And so for us to be able to put the city on the world's art map and create what we think is going to be Prague's answer to the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam, it's a tremendous privilege for us, and it brings us great joy. We've been fortunate to attract 6.5 million people to our exhibitions around the world over the years, and we're hoping that a good number of those people, and we hope all of you will come and visit us in Prague, enjoy the best beer in the world, and our beautiful river and the beautiful music as well. We have some of the best orchestras in the world, but we'll also come for their love of art and to come and see our beautiful museum. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you for the welcome.